Hi, and welcome to this edition of HappierMe Live. And today we're going to be talking about something that's probably the most important ingredient for human happiness, which is love. And how can we find love and sustain loving relationships? My guest to explore this with me is Martha Van Dam. Martha is a psychotherapist based in Florida. Martha, welcome.
Thank you. You know I love being here, Manoj.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And so the first question, Martha and I were going to speak for about 30 minutes, and then we're going to open it up for everyone to have their two pennies. Martha, why should we bother? About 40% of us are single. That's an astonishingly high number, isn't it?
It's a very high number, and when we think about how we know, science knows how valuable it is for us to be in relationship, that we need companionship,
Yes.
that I think loneliness, and actually in England, isn't loneliness supposedly one of the most difficult things that people are having to face in their lives?
Sure. Loneliness is between 30 and 60%. So you can be in a relationship and still be lonely if there's no love in it, for example.
True.
We have a minister for loneliness here in the government, and I think around the world, and it's supposed to be a big killer in the world. It's as much as smoking, I don't know how
Hmm.
many cigarettes a day and so on. So,
Hmm.
um, yes, and 50% of marriages are going to end in divorce, and perhaps even more so with couples who are unmarried and are in a relationship. And of course, people who are together are unhappy too, right? So it's a huge problem in the world.
It is, and we also think about how the state of your primary relationships affects everything. You can have a
Yes.
fabulous job, but if your marriage is failing desperately, it's hard to be happy in your job. It affects everything.
It absolutely affects everything. And we're talking about something more than just a civil relationship where people get on. We're talking about real affection and care. And
Mhm.
of course, if you have that, it also then translates to other aspects of your life, right? You're more kind at work.
Mhm.
And do you
Oh,
know what I mean?
yes.
If you have a loving relationship.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yes. And it helps others and helps you. You come home at the end of the day and there's someone to share with. You're not having to bear all of life by yourself.
Correct. Okay. So let's challenge some prevailing views on this subject. We the common myth from TV and movies and all the things we grew up with is it love is about finding the right person. And if it's not working, it's the other person's fault. What do you
Mhm.
think about that?
Well, occasionally you do have one person who just can't hold it together, but I'd say for the most part, it's about being the right person.
Yes, we never ask that question, right? How can we be the right person for and show up in the relationship as the best version of ourselves? And that's really going to be the focus of our discussion today. And I came across this beautiful line which said the quality of our relationships is limited only by the quality of our self awareness. So, self awareness is what will help us both find love and
Mhm.
help us sustain loving relationships. And I think that's the focus
Mhm.
of our discussion today. Um, I know there's end, and this is unfashionable, right? If you look at all the stuff that's written about finding love, it's all about, finding the right person, isn't it? Really?
It is, but your point about self-awareness and knowing yourself, I just think that's going to keep coming up over and over again because
Yeah.
that really is foundational to finding and maintaining a healthy and beautiful relationship.
Yes. Yes. And of course, we look for people when we're looking for love. We look for people like us, don't we?
Mhm. Well, yes, and then there's that opposites attract thing that we hear, which is always brings an interesting dynamic to
Yes. Yes.
relationships.
Yeah, and of course, we focus so much on the things we can't change, which is our looks, but ignore the things we can, which is how we show up in relationships, which is perhaps even more important than, our looks and so on, right?
Absolutely.
You can have the most beautiful people, looking people in the world in relationships, and they have spectacular fallouts, as you know. We've seen that.
And what happens as people age? Those looks change. And if the character isn't there to support, then what? Because
Yes.
the looks do change.
Yes, so important. I have come across many people from both sides, men and women, who prided themselves so much on their looks when they were younger and
Hmm.
found, you know,
Hmm.
the most attractive person to be with and so on. But of
Hmm.
course, as they got older, those relationships just didn't last at all. So the person you're most attracted to may not be the right person to build a healthy relationship with. I think you said that.
It's the truth. It's the truth. We can be most attracted to that person. And if we don't know why we're being attracted to that person, we'll just follow our heart.
Yes,
And we can be attracted to that person. Oh, maybe say they remind us of our abusive mother or father. That's not a good reason to be attracted.
yes, yes.
But the internal workings can just push us in that direction. Therefore, if we can be aware of what's
Self-awareness is the
happening.
key. Okay, so we're going to talk about six things. And the first is, how does our past influence our relationships, you think?
Yes, and I think it's the largest factor. And I don't mean, when we say past, I don't necessarily mean just previous relationships. I mean all of our past, how we grew up, whether we were cared for and nurtured as children, whether there was distance in the relationship with our parents, what the household felt like. All of that is going to play a role in us reaching into other relationships.
Yes. I think we don't realize that we're being pushed by these internal drivers,
Right.
you know,
Right.
and also the old patterns repeat themselves. So women will find abusive partners, leave
Hmm.
one and they'll find another one exactly the same. And
And
so
not understand why.
and
Why do
not
they'll
understand.
say, I pick badly. Why do I pick badly?
Yes, because we're not aware of the how our past conditioning is operating in us, let alone the fact that it is, that there is something there.
Sure, Manoj, I'm still finding things and realizing, oh, that sounded like my mother. Or, oh, I'm 65 years old and I still find things that I realize are affecting me from growing up.
Yes. And all our expectations of our current partners often are
Hmm.
linked to what's happened to us in the past, right? My
Hmm.
mother cooked all the time, so I expect my partner to cook all the time,
Right,
and so on. Or the
right.
opposite, my mother didn't do this, and so I expect my partner to do that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um,
Exactly. Exactly.
what about trauma, past trauma, Martha? How does that show up in relationships, and how does that come in the way?
Yes, that one gets in the way because the nervous system has learned from the trauma. So it's learned to try to protect us from anything that looks similar to the old trauma. And so, current husband maybe says something that reminds us just a little, or reminds our nervous system just a little bit of something from the trauma. He's not doing anything wrong or bad or difficult, but the nervous system goes, ah, stop, and pushes. We may be volatile. We may react in a way that is not healthy for the situation. We're really reacting to the old messages.
There's certain patterns, aren't there? People are more irritable, they're more demanding, more easily hurt. They
Hmm. Hmm.
misinterpret
Oh,
innocent
yeah.
things as threats
Yeah.
all the time.
And they don't know why they're doing it if they're not truly self-aware, and their partner really can't figure out why did I just see this explosion over nothing.
Yes, yes. So, of course, the key again is self-awareness. Just simply asking yourself, how is my past showing up in this relationship and so on, right? So important. Okay.
Mhm.
The second thing I want to talk about is the importance of self-acceptance. So, showing up in a relationship, being happy in yourself.
Mhm.
You want to talk a bit about that?
Well, sure. If we can't find when we're by ourselves and we're just within ourselves, if we can't find a measure of peace, then we'll start putting that pressure on our partner to give us that peace or to give us that happiness or that fulfillment. Whatever it is that we're missing, we'll start pressuring, even if it's below the surface, we'll start pressuring our partner. And no one other person can meet all of our emotional needs.
Yes.
We're not wired that way.
Yes. And I think also, if you're happy in yourself,
Hmm.
that's probably the most attractive quality that you
For
can have.
sure.
You know, people are attracted to happy people,
Hmm.
not to
Hmm.
unhappy people. You know what I mean? So you can be in charge of your own happiness. And it begins with self-acceptance of
Hmm.
yourself as you are, your looks, what job you have, how much you own, all of that stuff, right? So it's so important.
And the people who are genuinely not happy with themselves will not be drawn to someone who is very happy to them with themselves, which is a good thing.
Yes.
That's
Yes. Okay. All right. And so, okay, so self-acceptance, we also discussed, helps us to set boundaries, healthy boundaries, right? Because if I have low self-esteem, then I
yes,
am so afraid of being alone that I will tolerate any behavior in a partner, even if
yes,
it's abusive, right? And
yeah,
about
yeah.
20% of relationships are abusive in some way.
Yes, yes, yes. Yes, and I agree with that 100%. If we won't stand up, if we don't have the internal strength and confidence to stand up for ourselves and hold that boundary, then we'll just get pushed over. And also then we're training our partner of what we will tolerate and what we will not.
Yeah. But it's all comes back to this lack of self-confidence or self-esteem.
Hmm.
That's why so many women who are abused continue to stay on within those relationships because they're afraid of just being by themselves. And so they don't have that confidence, right? Okay.
Absolutely.
And of course, all of this is helped by self-awareness, and that's the key.
It is.
Okay, the third thing to talk about is the ego, understanding our ego. The need to be right, the need to want our own way. And it's so common and it derails so many relationships, right?
Mhm. Absolutely, it does. I just got the picture in my mind when you described that. We've all seen the little pictures of the angel on one side and the demon on one side, and it's almost like that self person, that ego is always suggesting, no, you want it your way. No, he's being selfish. No, you need to. That's the message that we get from that ego. And again, if we're not aware of there are other ideas out there, that's not the only idea, then we'll just follow it along.
Yes, it's part of being human. Our ego is, we're not saying it's a bad thing at all,
No.
but we're saying it's operating without our awareness.
Yes.
And of course, without that understanding, then we want to be right all the time, and the other person wants to be right all the time. We need people to agree with us, and even what pizza to order, where to go on holiday, what movie to watch. Everything becomes a big bun fight, right?
From the small all the way to the gargantuan. And you think of the people who are in marriages where they're maybe misaligned politically or from a religious sort of standpoint. By misaligned, I just mean they're different. They have to be able to tolerate and respect the other person's beliefs and choices.
Yes, yes. So, of course, if you're not aware of your own ego and self-interest, then our whole approach to relationships is what's in it for me.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, in that, there's no love, right?
No, there's not. And what's funny is we're saying we don't want to be what's in it for me. And that also we have to understand that it is not selfish to tune into what am I thinking? What is happening in me? All this self-focus is not selfish. It's wisdom,
Mhm.
and it's bringing wisdom to the relationship.
Yes. It's just understanding. We can't suddenly, surgically excise our ego and chuck it out. I mean, that's not realistic. But
Mm-mm.
understanding its role and how it serves us and doesn't serve us. Does it
Mm-hmm.
matter which pizza you order or where you go to, it doesn't really matter in the end as much as we think it does, right?
True. It's true. It's true. I need that reminder sometimes too.
But the more flexible we are, the more likely it is the other person is also going to be flexible. And without that flexibility, you can't make any relationship work, right?
No, and in the end, with that flexibility, the more we enjoy it, even
Yes,
if we're giving, even if we're bending,
yes,
we are going to be rewarded with that better relationship generally. I think we need to be aware that one caveat is we can be self-aware, we can do the work, we can be careful. That doesn't mean that our partner is.
no,
And we can be in a situation where our partner is not doing all of those things, and it can make it more difficult.
yes, yes. I've often been asked that question. What should I do if I am aware and my partner isn't?
Mhm.
And I guess there's no easy answer to that one.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
But of course, in all this, we also want to change people, don't we, Martha? If we're not aware of our self interest
Right.
in action.
Right.
So I'm vegetarian, then I start pushing you to become vegetarian, or the other way around. You push me
Right.
to start eating meat, and
Right.
that creates this tension. So accepting ourselves and others as they are is somewhere I read beautifully, love is just acceptance.
I think there's something to that. There's something to that.
I mean, of course, there are limits. I mean, we're not saying you have to accept abusive partners and
No.
so, but we're talking overall in general. Okay.
Mhm.
Let's talk a little bit about expectations and emotional needs, Martha, because they can also derail a relationship if you're not aware of them. We have so many expectations we bring into relationships, don't we?
And where do they come from? From our past, like
Yes.
we mentioned before, from our past, from our experiences, from our culture, from our society,
Yes.
or even in the smaller subcultures in which we live. Expectations grow there. There's value in questioning those expectations
Yes.
and asking, what have I picked up from my small culture, from my family, from my larger culture? What have I picked up, and does it serve me? Is it who I want to be? Is it living in my integrity? There's value in those questions.
Yes. And why do I have so many expectations?
Why do I have more expectations of other people than I have of myself?
Yes, yes. And why do I expect other people to meet them? And if they're not met, of course I get angry and, retaliate, and I'm not going to meet their expectations. And, that
Mhm.
whole cycle, yeah, goes on if you're not aware of what's happening.
Mhm.
But the other thing about expectations is we expect other people to read our mind,
Right.
to know what I
It-
to know what
It's
I
like,
need even before I need it.
right. It's like I've got a list of expectations, but I'm not going to tell you what they are, and you're in real big trouble if you don't meet them. That's a really pretty bad game if you don't know the rules.
Yes, yes. And if you're not aware of this whole process,
Mhm.
relationships quickly become transactional. I'll only do this for you if you do
Mhm.
this for me. Or you didn't do this for me, so I'm not going to do that for you.
And that's not a relationship.
No,
That
that's
that's a
just a war.
it's a war or a business relationship. I pay you, you pay me. You do a thing, and that's not a
And
relationship.
there's no love there. That's the main thing. See, we're talking about this fragrance, called love. And
Right.
either you have it or you don't have it. If you have it, your life is so much richer.
Hmm.
If you don't have it, then maybe there's things that get in the way, and this is what we're exploring. Okay.
Sure.
What about communication? How we communicate with each other really matters, doesn't it?
Absolutely, it matters. It either opens the door for real connection or pretty quickly it can shut it. I think you've heard me say, I feel like within a matter of seconds,
Hmm.
if we're starting, especially a difficult conversation, if we have to talk about something that may be heavy, I think within a matter of seconds, we set the tone. And if we set that tone in a harsh, demanding way, the other person is likely the defenses go up, the openness shuts down. They may be ready for a battle or at least ready just to protect themselves.
Yes, yes.
And so it's that initial going in with openness. Understand, we can only do that when we understand ourselves, but go in with openness within what is our intention? If our intention is for there to be connection, then we're not going to go in attacking.
I love that thought, Martha. What's our intention? Is our intention to build connection?
Mhm.
If you
Mhm.
just remind yourself of that, then you'll go into a conversation listening much better.
We can ask ourselves, am I trying to in this moment, am I trying to connect or am I trying to protect? Because we're
Yeah.
always doing one of the two.
Yes.
Even right now, you and I are connecting and we're trying to be genuine and open and talk about something that could be of value. I don't feel in this moment that either one of us are feeling protective, but you can tell when people are.
You
Their
can. Yes.
defenses come up and they're not open.
Yes. And I think we all have a need to be listened to,
Hmm.
but of course, not the same need to listen. And
It's
it's
the
a skill
truth.
we all need to develop.
It's the
Um,
truth.
but also, when someone's telling you about a problem, I read this somewhere that I think I practice. It's really helpful. Do you want me to just listen, or do you want me
Yes.
to offer a solution? And
Yes.
90% of the time when I ask that question, people will just say, I just want you to listen.
which shows you how much people want to be heard.
Yes, yes, that's it. And I think
They want
just being heard in a relationship makes is healing in a way.
it is healing. They want to be witnessed. They want somebody to see what their life is like and understand them.
Yes. Paul Tillich said in a beautiful quote, "The first duty of love is to listen."
Mm.
And yeah,
And isn't it interesting that very often early in our relationships, we just listen and listen and listen. We spend hours listening and listening, and then months or years later, no, it seems as though that's much more difficult to manage.
we start tuning out, don't we, quite quickly.
Mhm, mhm,
Okay.
mhm, mhm.
And I think tone matters as well. And we forget our own tone and the impact that's going to have on, other people.
What
Uh,
did they say, Manoj? 80% of communication is body language and facial
Non-verbal, yes,
expression. And
yes.
I
So,
mean, that's much more than the words.
yes, yes. Okay, one more thing about communication is important, I think, in love and relationships, is also to communicate when you're unhappy, when you're hurt.
Mhm.
How do you think we could do that, and why is that important?
Oh, that's a great thought. So I think a mistake we make, and this will say how we can do better. A mistake we make, and I think you and I have also mentioned this, is when we communicate about a problem, we tend to bring up the surface problem. I didn't get to pick where we went out to eat last night. You're always out playing golf. Those kinds of things. Okay, so that's the surface level is what we bring up. But in the issue of you're always out playing golf, that's actually not the issue. The
Yeah.
issue is I feel alone. I feel unimportant. I feel not valued by you.
Yes,
That's the real issue. And if we, this is so valuable, if we can understand this self-awareness, what is it I'm really feeling? I'm feeling alone.
yes,
And then you bring that to the table, then it doesn't matter how many times he's out playing golf, as long as he understands and helps you not feel alone.
yes, yes. So quite often, if I have an argument with my partner, I'll ask, is this the issue that we're really,
Hmm.
talking about? Is this what's really bothering you or bothering me? And
Hmm.
quite often, Martha, it isn't. There's something else.
Almost never is it just the surface issue.
Yes, yes. It's not about how clean the kitchen is.
No, no, no,
Or,
exactly,
whatever
exactly.
else it might be.
It's not even about you've spent too much money. It's really I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling disrespected. I'm feeling pressured to make these finances work.
Yes, all that. But equally, the other area where communication is really important for loving relationships is to be able to tell partners or friends that when it's not working, saying, I'm unhappy. This is, and whatever,
Mm-hmm.
because we're scared, aren't we, to communicate
Mm-hmm.
our hurt and our anger, whatever it is. And slowly, this lack of communication can erode the
Mm-hmm.
bonds in a relationship, well, any
Mm-hmm.
friendship, right?
What would you think the main fears would be if, for someone to bring up difficult things?
You're not sure how the other person will react.
The unknown.
Do you
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? And you're not sure if this means the end of your relationship, and you're frightened of that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I think a tip here might be just to say, to share how you're feeling without
Right.
blaming the other person. I'm feeling, because the person may not know, you see.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you say, you did this and I felt hurt by that,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not blaming you, but I'm just sharing how I'm feeling.
Right. Right.
Because so often when relationships break up, one partner turns around and says, but you didn't tell me.
Right.
But you didn't tell me how you were really feeling. That happened to a friend recently. After 8 years of marriage, her husband said, I'm leaving. And she said, but why? And they had a long list of complaints. But she said, you never told me.
And it's not fair to the person who doesn't know if they're not given the opportunity to make their changes or at least to hear. I do see it the other way where one person has tried to tell them over and over and over again.
Yes.
And then they'll say, "But I didn't know." And the telling partner has said, "I've
Yes.
said it
Or
more
you weren't
times than
listening. Yeah. Yeah.
yes. Yes.
But communication takes courage, is what I mean. And
Mhm.
we need to find that courage in relationships, I think, if we're going to keep them healthy.
We have to be, it's an honest thing for me to say. It is difficult for someone to tell me a way that I've acted that has created pain for them. It's hard to hear those things.
Mm.
And so maybe a piece of it is being able to share with our partner, but another equally important piece is being able to hear
Yes.
without closing down, becoming protective or combative.
Mhm.
If you tell me that you're hurt by something I've said or done, I better be able to listen.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's not easy for an awful lot of us.
Okay. My last question to explore is to understand what love is and what it isn't. There's so many misconceptions about what love is, right? You want to
Right.
get the ball
Well,
rolling on that one?
well, I like what I've heard you say is that love is a verb. It's not, we think of it just as the gushy feeling, and that is a part of it. It's a beautiful, wonderful part of it, but that's not all that it is.
No.
And I think have told you that sometimes I'll have clients come in and they'll say they're just not in love anymore. Yeah, and they may even say, I love him, but I'm just not in love. And I think, oh, okay. So a lot of that first rainbows and puppy dogs feeling that we get is really the excitement of a newness.
Mm.
That's not necessarily love. It's, oh, this is a good feeling. This is new. This is exciting. Real love comes out of turning toward our person, caring for them with action, and making what changes we need to make to be a part of that partnership. And just continuing to work through and then through the things, and what we should end up with is a growing sense of a solidness, a connection that feels safe, that becomes more and more comfortable and worth hanging on to.
Yes. You know, the paradox is our mind is wired so that when I say I love you, what I'm really saying is I love the way you make me feel. It's all
True.
about me. Though I'm
It's
saying I love you,
true.
what I'm really saying is it's all about me and how I'm feeling. It's not about what I want to do for you. It's about how you're
Right.
making me feel. And the
It's true.
moment you stop making me feel that way, then I hate you. I don't love you. And as
Hmm.
you've seen with your clients, love turns to hate on a dime, doesn't it? So quickly.
On a dime. Hmm. Yeah. Where
Okay.
there's truly not love, what you see is apathy, not anger.
Hmm.
It's it's more just a not just a just not caring.
Yes. And to also remind yourself what love isn't. And love is not possessiveness. It's
No.
not abuse. It's not bullying. It's not forcing people to think like you or is giving people freedom. Right? That's real
Hmm.
love. Do you know what I mean? To be
Hmm.
themselves and support them to flower in a way that may not serve you, but it's
But serves
about
them.
them, right? For them, for
Hmm.
their sake.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's perhaps also a respect of differences, you think? Because we are so
Oh,
always
I
trying to
love,
change people, right?
yes, I love that you brought the respect piece in because I think that's a big piece of it. Respecting individual's right to be who they are, to have their feelings, to have their desires and wants, and chase after their dreams. Just to respect that in another person. That is a big piece of what real love is. It's not very loving if you're demanding someone to be different and you can't you refuse to look at them and be support what it is that's valuable to them.
Yes. So I think growing in a relationship to becoming more loving
Mhm.
as a person is really should be the journey and
Mm.
aim for every human being, right? How can I be more loving? You know, Hafiz said that beautifully in this poem. He said, I've forgotten the poem now, but he said, one day lovers will meet and they will ask each other, my darling, how can I be more loving? How can I be more kind?
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
to ask each other. So sometimes the other day I asked my sons, I said, how can I be more loving to you?
Hmm.
And they were completely flabbergasted by that question.
Could they come? I'm not asking, I don't want the personal answers, but could they come up with answers?
Yeah, they did actually. And I said, is there a way I could be more loving? to you?
Hmm.
And I often ask that to my partner too. And yeah, it's such a beautiful question to be asked as well, right?
It really is. And I've known of people, particularly men, who would ask their wife in the morning, how can I make your life easier today?
Hmm.
What a laying myself down to be supportive and loving for you. What a wonderful way.
Yes.
And it's most valuable when both people have that same attitude.
Ooh, that reminds me, this the way you want to be loved and I want to be loved may be different, right?
Yes.
So I may love you in the way that I think I want to be loved, but actually it's different. You might like food cooking for you, and I might like presents or compliments or whatever,
And
right?
this goes back to these early childhood things an awful lot of the time that we don't realize. We saw dad loving mom by putting gas in her car and mowing the grass and chopping the vegetables for her because her hand, that's what we saw. So we think, oh, service, that's what love looks like. Husband comes along and he wants to buy gifts. And
Yeah.
that doesn't like, but I need you to put gas in my car. So what I say to that when I'm talking with people is that we develop a language of relationship growing up, just like we develop whatever. I spoke English as a child growing up, so I speak English now. If I'd grown up in France, I would have picked up French. We pick up those languages of relationships just as well. It's quite valuable for us to learn our partner's relationship. That
Yes.
doesn't mean always we speak it, but it certainly means if my husband understands French and I don't speak it, I better learn to say je t'aime. I better learn to be able to say I like you, I love you.
Yes.
And if I don't, he's never going to fully
Yes.
sense.
Yes. So loving somebody is one of the hardest things for us humans because our whole consciousness is wired to be self-serving in a way.
True.
So, and relationships we talked earlier are a real opportunity for personal growth,
Hmm.
not just to get our emotional needs met, but also to
Right.
learn about ourselves through self-awareness and grow as human
Mm.
beings to be more loving. And I think that's one of the greatest evolutions for any human being, right?
It is, Manoj, and I just had a thought. I think maybe one of the things that can create trouble, maybe one of the reasons the divorce rate is so high, is that when we face a moment or in multiple moments in our relationship, we're being handed an opportunity for growth.
Yes.
And
Yes.
growth doesn't feel good. So instead of really digging in and saying, okay, what can I learn from this? Maybe there's a piece of it at least that I can contribute or I can change. We just want to sit back and say the other person needs to change.
Yes.
And if we won't dig in and allow that growth to happen, that as you say, the marriage bring or the relationship brings to the surface, if we're not allowing ourselves to grow, then the relationship can't grow.
No,
And
I think especially when we feel hurt, right?
yes. Hmm.
100% of the time, if you're in a relationship, you're going to be hurt.
Hmm.
And your mind is going to, by instinct, want to run
Hmm.
away, withdraw, retaliate.
Sure.
And that's the occasion for personal growth. That's the real opportunity for it. That's a better word, right?
Yes, yes, it is a great opportunity for it. And it's not that that initial inclination towards self-protection is bad. That's what's kept us alive all these years. To
Hmm.
recognize when something isn't good or doesn't go our way, ooh, recognize it. But most of the time, not always, but most of the time in our relationships, we're not in a life or death situation. It's not like we need to protect. So
Yes.
if we can step back and say, what was that about? Why did that hurt? Why
What's
was
going on
that
in
my
me that,
reaction?
yeah, what can I learn about myself that made me
Hmm.
feel hurt? Because
Right.
that's, I think, one of the biggest reasons why so many relationships strain, break up, and people are single is because we haven't learned a better way to deal with hurt. Let's put it that way, right?
Right, right, right.
Two things came up,
Thank you.
Sanjay, from what you said. One is, I think we all see repeating patterns in all our relationships.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I
Mm.
think they're worth calling out and saying, and I like your idea of a formal meeting and a discussion because you know you're going to have some hard conversations and everyone's kind of prepared and ready for that.
Hmm.
Yeah,
So that's one.
no
But
phones, no phones,
no
and
phones,
time limited.
time limited, and maybe nobody's, and some rules like nobody's allowed to interrupt and, all of
Yeah,
that stuff,
Right.
right? Good.
Mhm. The biggest piece of everything we've said that comes out to me that I hear is this business of being tuned into what's happening within ourselves. If we're
Right.
not at least a little bit aware, may not have it fully down, but at least be open to it, then it's going to make a difference in how we move into the relationship.
Okay. So for you, that's the number one thing.
Mhm.
What are the internal drivers that are pushing you and your thoughts and behaviors and feelings? And if you're not aware, then that's going to cause trouble, right? I think for me, the most important thing is to realize love is not about how you feel.
Mhm.
It's about what you're doing for the other person.